I never experienced anything like that. But from the next day, the way Lewis and Gilbert do the walk of shame back to the library, I really think they had sex with those animals.
Looking at it that way, I kind of I respect. Well, I shouldn't even say that. That's terrible. But, I mean, I respect their tenacity. I should say that. But no one should ever, please, don't ever have sex with animals.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked.
Welcome, nerds, jocks, and students alike, to the Revenge of the Nerds edition of Shat the Movies, where we ask, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Gene Lyons, with my co-host, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And we'll be taking a look back in time to decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week, the audience selects from four movie choices that we break out in the race car VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. And then at the end of each podcast, Big D and I will provide the audience with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off our respective bums, find a comfortable spot on the sofa, and accompany us for a journey through our vast VHS movie collections. This week's theme was college movies, and we received a whopping 446 votes. The top vote getter, which we are doing this week, was Revenge of the Nerds with 62% of the vote. That is a massive landslide. Big D, is that as big a landslide as we had with Terminator 2?
It's pretty close. A lot of people loved it. I actually had this movie requested by my company's in-house counsel, who reminded me early on when he knew what we were doing with Shat the Movies, revisiting him. He goes, "You have to go do Revenge of the Nerds." He goes, "It ends with a rape." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And I don't want to spoil it now, but we're going to get to some shenanigans that might be a whole list of felonies for Lewis, Gilbert, the Alpha Beta Boys, and everyone at Adams College.
So yeah, the other movies that we did not do based on voting was Real Genius came in with 29% of the vote. Back to School, which is a huge favorite of mine, only got 7.8% of the vote. And then PCU had a PC shit voting streak with 1.3% of the vote, only 6 people. So Revenge of the Nerds, again, it's a 1984 movie falling into that slot. We've done so many of these 1984 movies. Great year for movies. It's a American sex comedy film. The plot chronicles a group of nerds at the fictional Adams College trying to stop the ongoing harassment by the jock fraternity, the Alpha Betas, who are aided by their sister sorority, Pi Delta Pi. Big D, where were you when you first saw this movie?
I don't think I saw it any time right around when it was released. And that was due to a fact that when they were testing the movie, it originally had done well, but in the final test before releasing it, they did a screening in Dallas. And you got to figure, Dallas might not be the right area to screen this film, considering, Dallas is a lot of macho dudes. It seems like they're not as open-minded and liberal as some other places. So not surprisingly, they gave it scathing marks, enough that it scared Fox. And Fox immediately cut the budget, and it was only released in 364 screens. So not many people saw it in the theaters originally, and then slowly it grew and grew and grew. And this is one of those movies that became, a huge hit after it was in the theaters. But I do not even remember the first time I saw it. It's just always been there in my subconscious.
For me, I think this is one of those things that I never watched fully. I just kind of saw it in passing at other friends' and relatives' homes. I remember really liking it, but I only saw it in chunks. And I think a lot of people digested it that way. It's kind of something that's on a lot. And in pieces, it's not that horrifying. But I found this time watching it in its entirety, it was frightening in a lot of ways. Again, I don't have a frat background. You do. So maybe you can kind of give us some insights there.
Yes, now that I'm years beyond it, please don't judge me. And that goes to the entire audience. But yes, I was the president of a large national fraternity in my college in New York. So I have some intimate knowledge that hopefully I can relay on real world fraternities back in the 90s when it was a little more wild. And today, I kind of laugh at those times and the things that we did and kind of what we thought. And I don't know if that's why I have an affinity to the movie, that I see a lot of my friends and kind of some of the dumb things we did.
So like you mentioned, Big D, this movie was hugely popular. They were considering making a remake, and they started on it, but it got shut down. This was in 2006. After 2 weeks of filming, they stopped production. Fox was, the execs were not completely satisfied, and the cast included Adam Brody and a not yet married to Channing Tatum, Jenna Dewan. Is it Dewan?
This was a common problem that the original Revenge of the Nerds had is they got approval for the original movie was shot in Arizona. Once the school got a hold of the script, they said, you can't do this here. But they were persuaded by money. When the remake was done, they weren't so lucky. The dailies came back bad. The school was balking at some of the things they wanted to do, so they just scrapped it. But they did do, in the early 90s, Fox tried to do a television version. You remember that?
I don't remember that at all.
Because it only aired once. So it's understandable that you didn't see it. But did you have a hard time finding this movie online?
Yes, I had an impossible time. So I am all about paying, and doing this on the up and up. I'll always go to Netflix first, see if I can get it for free, then go to HBO Go, see if I can get it for free. After that, I'll go to Amazon and finally iTunes. And I cycled through all the options. I could not find this movie. You can find Revenge of the Nerds 2, 3, 4, but this was impossible. So I actually had to watch it on YouTube, and that was the way I got to it.
Yeah, that's where I watched it as well. I'm the same way. I will try to always pay for it if I can. But another thing I didn't remember, this soundtrack kicked ass, or I thought it did, because you're hearing Michael Jackson Thriller, you're hearing Burning Down the House, Talking Heads, We Are the Champions, we got some Queen, and then you dropped some knowledge on me that surprised me.
Yeah, when I looked at this the first time, I remember in the Burning Down the House scene where they're literally burning down the house, you got the Talking Heads, you got a lot of cool sounds on there, like you mentioned, all those hits. So I went looking for the soundtrack to see, what other cool stuff was on it, kind of thinking it might be another Beverly Hills Cop. And Queen is not on there. The Talking Heads are not on there. I think there aren't many hits on this that were in the movie that are on the actual soundtrack.
Well, of course they had to have, you have to put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And then they had
down.
And then what was the song from the party?
It's like the Bringing the Sexy Girls or something like that.
Are you ready for the sex girls?
That's it.
Yeah, so that was on it. But this was also, you got to remember, the 80s was the time where they would write an original song for the movie. So there is, of course, on there, Revenge of the Nerds, which is the main theme song, which tells you about all the nerds. It gets you ready for the plot, and it has that famous nerds.
Yeah. One more fun fact that's from Roger Roper, who could not be with us on this recording. There was no Spanish word for nerd at the time of this movie's screening. So when they released it, there was supposedly no word for nerd. And so when the movie screened in Spain, it was called La Revancha de los Novatos. So the Revenge of the Freshmans, which still kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I wonder if this translates very well. Not just the title, but the movie.
So enough about the facts about the movie. Let's get into the movie itself. Big D, you want to roll that trailer?
Star Wars, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The Sound of Music. In the tradition of these great films about fighting back against the odds, 20th Century Fox presents another milestone in motion picture history. Revenge of the Nerds.
Nerds!
Nerds?
Nerds.
Nerds! What is a nerd?
They've been laughed at, picked on,
There's a roommate, pal!
and put down.
I'm not kissing a nerd.
They don't have the moves or the muscle,
You know karate? No. Good.
but they've got the brains.
I know what we're gonna do.
It's time for the odd to get even.
Their action tonight demands an immediate retaliation. How many cameras do we have left?
This should do it.
Oh, here she comes. Go up, go up. Oh, no.
That nerd saw me naked.
Nerds!
Are all nerds as good as you?
Revenge of the Nerds. Their time has come.
I drink to that.
All right, here's the scene in the plot. Best friends and nerds, Louis Skolnick and Gilbert Lowe, enroll in Adams College to study computer science. They are kicked out of the freshman dorms by the Alpha Betas, a fraternity composed primarily of football team members who look like they're 30 years old, after the Alphas carelessly burn down their own frat house.
So the movie starts off in the Lowe house with Gilbert in bed. And what surprised me was we see Louis comes over. He's trying to get Gilbert out of bed, yanks the covers off, and he's already dressed. That wasn't what surprised me. I couldn't believe the moves that Louis had. First of all, Flo was a good-looking lady. She's a widower, and Louis is all over her. He kisses her on the cheek. He's grabbing her. He might be a nerd, but he's not missing too many pieces to actually get laid.
I mean, this theme falls through the whole story, which is basically, as he iconically says, jocks only think about sports. All nerds think about is sex. And I think that's pretty accurate. I think the internet has proven that. But the movie does start with some horrible cliches that basically continue throughout as well. So you've got these, Devo-esque songs that aren't being done by Devo. You got the nerd laugh. And I kind of wanted to shut it off after a couple of minutes. But that might have to do with the fact that for Valentine's Day, I had just finished watching The Princess Bride, which to me is kind of the gold standard for a comedy. And so that drop off from The Princess Bride to Revenge of the Nerds was a little tough.
Yeah, but remember, you can't compare something like The Princess Bride. That's timeless and something on its own. Try to look at this Revenge of the Nerds for what it was. It was a snapshot of this time. You can't compare it to the all-time great, or every movie is going to suck. There's not going to be a comedy you like.
One of the things I did like about the movie was it made me reconsider frat boys, because when I was in college, so this is the late 90s and early 2000s, frat boys dressed like shit.
Can we ask, frat boy, that's the derogatory term. We don't like that.
The Greeks?
The Greeks, or a fraternity member, or a frat is a dirty word. It just...
All right, so fraternity members. Anyway, in the 80s, it seems that they dressed better, they liked better music, and they had cooler parties, and they were incredibly inventive with their pranks, which we'll get into throughout this podcast. But they, I was really impressed with they really put in some effort. So once we get to campus, we start seeing Alpha Beta. We're introduced to that fraternity, and they're essentially the villains in this movie. How accurate is this depiction of fraternity life?
Well, in the 90s, I don't think it was very accurate. Yeah, and again, what am I saying? Yeah, we did stupid shit, but I don't think it was out in the open like this. As I say that, then I remember the final night of Seinfeld, when Seinfeld was airing. We had a couch that we had with us for probably 2 or 3 years as we moved from the house to the dorms. And we would say that this couch was possessed, because anytime two people fell asleep on it, it was 90% certainty they were going to have sex. So this couch had been almost worn out. It was mystical. And we were graduating, so we somehow came up with the idea, after killing an entire bottle of Captain Morgan, to put it on the roof, light it on fire, and throw it into the quad like the Phoenix. So this might have been more accurate than I remembered.
But did you guys drop anybody off of a balcony or anything like that?
No, because there's no way that guy survives. That's the first case. If you paralyze somebody, Nationals is shutting you down. If you get any pledges really hurt, if the police come and there's a report, I think that shit wouldn't fly. The crazy, ridiculous stuff, like the stair diving into the pool, setting small fires that don't burn down buildings, that all works, but you can't drop somebody off. The last time we saw somebody held by their ankle off the edge of something, it was Colonel Matrix in Commando, and there's no way Ogre is that strong.
Yeah, Ogre I still haven't quite figured out, because I can't tell if he's a jock or a burnout. He looks way too old to be there, but we kind of agree that he basically killed the guy at the beginning of the movie.
He at least paralyzed him.
So getting back to the burning down of the house, a la Talking Heads, it struck me that this was actually really important in the scene. Well, one, it explains why Alpha Beta has to move out of their house, but two, it shows you like how spoiled and careless they really are, where they're just singing and roasting marshmallows on their burning house.
Yeah, my biggest problem with this entire scene, there's like 17 guys on the football team. This is supposed to be a Division I college. They talk about going to bowl games. Stan Gable's an All-American quarterback. 17 guys? Come on, you couldn't have sported for more players?
Well, getting beyond that, the coach role was completely underperformed by John Goodman. Like, either they limited him too much or he really wasn't trying in this movie because, he had an opportunity, I think, in that coach role to be hilarious. And it was just kind of like underdone. Like maybe he just hadn't hit stride as an actor at this point.
Yeah, I think it gets a little strange. It's okay in the movie to have almost like student on student hate and crime. But the second you start having the adults get involved, it takes even like a worse turn. Later in the movie, we see the coach tries to incite the alpha betas into getting revenge. And that, I feel, makes the movie more mean-spirited. So maybe they tone down the adult component of the nerd hatred.
Well, after that, the fires burn down the house. The dean, they put the alpha betas in the dorms, and they put the freshmen actually in temporary quarters in the school's gym. But he allows them to rush fraternities, which they wouldn't normally allow freshmen to do, to alleviate their housing situation. Lewis, Gilbert, and other nerds fail to gain fraternity membership, but they're able to rent and completely renovate a rundown 2-story campus house, which looks a lot like a fraternity house.
Yeah, one of the things that I didn't buy was how weak the dean was. The dean seems like a solid stand-up guy, but he's beholden to the football team and to the coach. And he's allowed to drag these guys into the gym of all places, where the gym is still being used. I don't think that would really happen. If you're paying money for school, wouldn't your parents get a bit pissed if you're living in a gymnasium?
Yeah, I think this sets the tone again for all the rules being broken at Adams College. Adams is by no means a first-rate institution as far as I can tell. Now, apparently they got a D1 football team and one of the best schools for computer science, but that's about all they've got going for them. When they put them all in there, though, I think the narrative point of having them all in there is that you can now see the catalog of the nerds. You can see all of them, and each of them seems to have, what they would consider a deficiency. So I kind of started going down the list and trying to figure out, is each of them a nerd? And so I looked up nerd as a definition to make sure that I was defining it the same way as everyone else. And nerd is defined as a foolish or contemptible person who lacks social skills or is boringly studious. And I can see that applying to a lot of the guys, but how does that apply to Lamar? Like, he's just gay and amazing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to find out how they categorize as nerds. You have some of them. There's a whole group of the nerds that we really don't get to meet. There seems to be a Middle Eastern member of the fraternity who has is it a turban? Is that the appropriate term?
Sure.
He has a head wrap.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Turban's fine.
Yeah. So he has a turban. We see one who looks like one of the Marx brothers. Like, I think it's Harpo. We don't ever get any lines out of him. But it seems like the main characteristic is you're intelligent or you're socially awkward. That's really it, unless you're Asian.
Right, yeah. Or gay.
Yeah. Did you feel that they overdid it? There's only one ethnic group that I found they really had the gloves off and it was okay to take down, and that was poor Takashi.
Yeah, I feel like in the 80s, this was just the thing. And if you look at like Long Duck Dong and other characters, a lot of these 80s movies, especially John Hughes movies, it was okay to do the Engrish jokes, very sexy girlfriend and all that. And I did not appreciate that. I did, however, I found myself, again, a guilty laugh is when they're throwing the jock straps at him, they ask, "Do you know karate?" And he says no, and they're like, "Good." But I think to a degree that was making fun of the American ignorance toward the Asians.
Oh, come on. They went over the top. Whether it's Booger robbing him in poker when he's like, "Oh, what is a royal flush?" Or to Robster Craws, or the fact that they make Takashi wear a kamikaze helmet. That shit wouldn't fly today, right?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think still Asians are one of those groups that if you're going to make fun of a racial group, it's going to be the one where you're going to catch probably the least flack. Maybe Asians or Hispanics, I think. Black is pretty much, off the table. Middle Easterners, like, people aren't comfortable enough to laugh yet. They're just still scary, thankfully. I'm not really sure. And then you get to Booger. And Booger's a weird one too, because he seems like he's got drugs, like he's gross, but he's not any more gross than Ogre.
Yeah, and we see what's nice is that all the misfits that are left in the gym, they're really coming together. It's much like the Waltons, the television show at night when they would shut off all the lights in the houses and everyone would say, good night, Mary Ellen. Good night, Jim Bob. I'm probably dating myself here with this. But when they shut the gym lights off, you hear them all, good night, Takashi. Good night, Booger. It was cute.
Yeah, and Booger, good nights with a burp, which was the first time I laughed during this entire movie. Booger's probably my favorite character in this. And if you notice, he's actually wearing a Greasy Tony's t-shirt. So talking about my college days, Greasy Tony's was an institution at Arizona State University. It was right across the street from Manzanita Hall, which was the freshman dorm where I lived my freshman year. And it was open super late.
I totally forgot. You went there.
I went to Arizona State. They filmed this at University of Arizona.
Okay. Damn.
But at Arizona State, Greasy Tony's was, it was our late night place to go. And you could see all sorts of things. But the rumor was always that Tony had left the mob and was in Arizona as a sort of an exile. And what struck me as true about that story is you always see these weird old East Coast looking kind of Italian guys and Greek guys hanging out there. And one night I seriously saw this old guy in a suit sitting on a stool at Greasy Tony's, and he just started pissing himself, and it was pouring all over the stool. And I was like, this place is amazing. So I was really happy to see that shirt. And their slogan for Greasy Tony's is no charge for extra grease.
That's awesome. But let's talk about all the nerds decide to group together. They have to find a better living space. Did Lewis and Gilbert create the first apartment hunter app?
Yeah, I think Mr. Robot kind of spits out the list of all the places they're supposed to look. So I think that we're looking at the early days of app entrepreneurship. We can credit Lewis and Gilbert for that.
Yeah, some of the homes that they visit are memorable. We have little Wormser going around, and he comes across what looks like maybe a woman in her late 40s, red negligee. It's presumably maybe 1 in the afternoon, maybe noon. And this lady's just looking to troll with a 12-year-old boy. That kind of struck me a bit wrong.
Yeah, a lot of them were memorable. And again, one of my favorites is when Lamar goes up to the house and you got like the big, Texan-looking dude with the beer, and he just kind of runs away. But all of them, all of them were kind of expertly mismatched in the way they were looking for the housing.
What do you want? Go away. Fuck off. Get out of here.
I totally forgot about that one. That was brilliant.
Well, you got that one, or you have the presumably Japanese father. Even calls Takashi a nerd. You figure he'd be proud of him. He's representing his culture very well. He seems like a nice guy doing well in school. I don't think the Japanese homeowner would have put him down, but maybe they're oppressing nerds in Japan as well.
When they are trying to find housing, they're also trying to find love. And, we talked about Lewis kind of hitting on everybody. Gilbert finds his romantic interest during this section of the movie when he's in computer lab, and he meets Judy. And as soon as I heard the name Judy, I was like, oh, that sounds really familiar. And then I remembered that one of my favorite bands, Data Rock, they have a song called Computer Camp Love. And the lyrics to it literally go, she's not a tramp, her name is Judy. That's a nice name. Yeah, she's a nice girl. Big deal, did you get in her pants? She's not that kind of a girl, Booger. And in the song, I never even put 2 and 2 together that Booger, it's Booger from, that's the exact line from the cafeteria scene, which, again, every college movie in the 80s had to have a cafeteria scene. So if you get a chance, Computer Camp Love, it's on YouTube or SoundCloud or Stitcher. I don't know where it is.
What I think is funny, both of us work in the computer-related industries. Back in '84, there were very few people dabbling in it. Was this what the average American thought you would do with a computer when Gilbert sits down, starts typing away at the keyboard, and creates a graphic representation of Judy and him?
Yeah, from the 80s to present day, everything on computers has to be animated graphics. And it made me think of movies like Hackers, like War Games, where an interface that would have no reason to have a graphic representation would. And all you got to do is just click a bunch on a keyboard and things will appear. And it was that oversimplification of computers drives me nuts. Apparently, it's been going on since I was 4 years old. So that's really good to know. So let's talk about the house that they do find, and they're fixing it up. Now, normally when a montage kicks in, you can expect some of the funniest or most memorable, because now you're working with a music video format. You could really look at that and go, wow, this is going to be something fun. They don't even need to write a script for this. I felt like this home improvement montage was an absolute snore. I kept waiting for the big gag, and there just wasn't one. It made me miss Rocky IV, which had some of the best montages we've ever seen.
Are you kidding me? I loved it. I thought it was great. We got to see the robot, functioning. We get to see them all working together, and this is a team building experience. But I think what makes it is the song. You remember it. You've got to put one foot. You're smiling. You're smiling. There's no way you could hate it.
Well, I didn't love the montage, though. All you mentioned here was, let's go down that catalog. A robot functioning was your first piece of evidence.
No, come on. He's vacuuming and he's painting.
So the nerds fix up the house. They got this beautiful home very quickly, I might add. And their success irks Stan Gable, the lead of Alpha Beta and Adams' star quarterback. So he sets his fellow fraternity members against the nerds, pulling several pranks. The nerds approach the campus police for help, but are bound by the fraternity's Greek council that adjudicates all such pranks. The only way to appeal the Greek council's inaction is to join a national fraternity. So the nerds attempt to gain national membership, eventually selecting the black fraternity Lambda Lambda Lambda, also known as the Tri-Lambs. The head of the Tri-Lambs, U.N. Jefferson, is not thrilled by the notion of granting a charter to a primarily nerd chapter, but the fraternity's bylaws obligate them to give any chapter applicant a 60-day probationary membership.
Okay, so as a member of a fraternity in college, what struck me kind of off is the hatred that the Alpha Betas have for the nerds. There's no reason to. Generally, what I've found is the Greek system in colleges, even though there isn't a rivalry and adversarial role, it's usually that they kind of work together. They have a common interest. You'll do mixers with certain organizations. You'll pair up for events. You do a lot of charities. I don't know why the Alpha Betas hate them so much.
They certainly do. I mean, I think it's supposed to be this representation that nerds are just not acceptable. And they express it in some pretty violent yet creative ways. Now, it starts off pretty basic. They throw a rock through the window, and that causes the nerds to go to the police department where they tell them they can't help them. But in this scene, we learn about mopery. Big D, you want to tell us about what mopery is?
Well, I need to know if mopery really exists. Mopery apparently is exposing yourself to a blind person. Now, I tried to find if this was just a Hollywood thing or whether mopery exists. Do you know? Does it exist?
No, I think this is one of the most subtle and hilarious jokes about the whole movie. And the guy looks so sad for getting arrested for mopery. I love that part. And again, there's a lot of sexual harassment jokes in this movie that I do not appreciate in any way. But mopery was brilliant. Now, from there, they go to releasing the pigs into the party. They set that beautiful nerd sign on fire in the front yard. These pranks are elaborate. They're expensive. I respect the Alpha Betas for what they're doing.
Yeah, the craftsmanship is wonderful. Whoever created that nerd sign and lit it up, it was precise. But I just want to digress just a little bit. Before they actually go to Lambda 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 and get a provisionary chapter, Gilbert and Lewis are going to still try one more time to find a fraternity that might match them. They go to the pie house, and Betty steers them in the direction of the Alpha Betas. Total dick move. But I want everyone to know, at no point in my initiation or pledging was there a goat or any animal involved. Do we believe that the Alpha Betas actually made Lewis and Gilbert have sex with that goat?
I think that it was the implication that it was supposed to terrify them. What I don't understand is why were the condoms already unrolled? I mean,
they were used. They look like used condoms.
Oh, good God.
I totally got the vibe. And none of this, like the altar of sacrifice, any of that went on. I never experienced anything like that. But from the next day, the way Lewis and Gilbert do the walk of shame back to the library, I really think they had sex with those animals.
Looking at it that way, I kind of I respect. Well, I shouldn't even say that. That's terrible. But, I mean, I respect their tenacity. I should say that. But no one should ever, please, don't ever have sex with animals.
Yeah, that's your PSA for this episode. No sex with animals.
That's right. So the nerds invite UN Jefferson to a Lambda party with the Omega Mu sorority, and that contains similar nerdy women, including Gilbert's girlfriend, Judy. Their party is livened up when Booger supplies joints with high-quality marijuana. Then the Alpha Betas, along with the Pi Delta Pies, to which Stan's head cheerleader girlfriend Betty Childs belongs, let a herd of pigs into the party, disrupting it. That allows Jefferson to see the discrimination that the nerds face. So talking about this party, let's get into some of the things that we see at the party other than the Omega Moos being ready to rock, and the pigs being let loose. Another guilty laugh I saw was when Lewis goes over to the record player and tries to put on something that you and Jefferson would appreciate more. And he goes and he puts on some old black spirituals. I immediately felt guilty for laughing.
Lamar, at least, is clued in, comes over and quickly pulls it off. But we've already seen that the football team look half like overweight lumberjacks, maybe in their 30s. But the Pies, compared to what we've seen at Adams College, they look pretty good. But here's what I want to ask you. You are now back in college. You're with a group of your friends. Who do you rather party with, the Pies or the Omega Moos?
Oh, well, that's no doubt the Pies. And this is why when I was watching this movie, I see Lewis, and he's obsessed with Betty, he's obsessed with the Pies. And I'm going, man, you're a traitor to your own cause, right? Like, stick with your own people. Like, and that's how I feel about social structure, right? Like, goth kids. I grew up a goth kid, and I will always take the side of that weirdo kid. But in this case, I'll be honest, I don't blame him. I'd rather hang out with the Pies.
Yeah, they were hotter, but I think shit would go off the rails real quick with the Moos. You got 3 girls right away that are ready to bang out in public at the party. You got the girl who's all over Point Dexter. Lewis goes upstairs, bangs a girl, comes out in his Hugh Hefner, smoking jacket. Booger is all over 2 giant women. This shit looks like a party. But who pulls out an accordion? Or who does a violin recital at an open house party? Only the Tri-Labs.
Or anybody living in Wisconsin. That is definitely a Wisconsin move. But they're getting high and they're getting drunk right in front of national rep from the fraternity. Like, is that normal in the 80s? Can you do that?
Well, no. I'll give you this, and I got a good story for this. So usually annually you have I think like it's a regional rep who will come out and, have a visit to the chapters, see how you guys are doing, sit in on meetings, check out the financials, the whole bit. So keep in mind, this is late 90s. So video cameras are still relatively large. One of our fraternity events, and please don't judge me again, this was a previous incarnation of me. One of our events that we had done for Rush was we hired a couple adult entertainers, a couple strippers. So it just happened to coincide with the time that our regional rep was there. The regional rep was relatively cool. So we hide a camera under a pile of jackets. These 2 ladies perform for a few hours. We pull the tape later on, and in the tape is the national rep. Okay. Fast forward 2 years. This national rep goes up the ranks and eventually becomes the head of the national fraternity. We were a bunch of delinquents, and we were frequently getting in trouble. This blackmail material kept us open for years. Anytime we would do something and he would look at us, we would just kind of smile at him, and he immediately knew he had to kind of give us a pass.
So, and I don't want to push you or pry into any information that you're not allowed to divulge, but what exactly happened in this video?
It was 2 young ladies of age. I believe one of them had been in like Penthouse, so she was relatively known. So she was a marquee draw to this Rush event. So the 2 women were just performing on each other. They started giving dances out to members, and there, right in the background, is the future president of the national fraternity.
Okay, it's not as graphic or as bad as I thought it might be.
No, it wasn't an orgy. I mean, the 2 girls, they were friendly with each other, but it wasn't a giant orgy. No laws were broken, other than maybe a hidden camera.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty. Well, I don't know if that's illegal. You can do that though; it's your own home.
You have to check New York State. I think some of the states you have to have everyone be aware of it.
So Booger breaks out the weed. Again, I'm arguing that Booger is not a nerd. He knows how to throw a party. He's very confident. I love Booger. Don't think he's a nerd, but I'm glad that he's helping the nerds out at least. He's a nerd ally. And we're left to wonder, is UN Jefferson, is he making them a chapter because he sees they know how to party? Or is it because of some sort of solidarity about being an outsider or being a minority?
I really think he's not going to give them a chapter. The party's embarrassing. The members are in disarray. What solidifies their chance in actually getting a chapter is when the Alpha Betas come and light the nerd sign on fire in the front yard. Now, of course, being the head of a predominantly black fraternity, he would understand the significance of cross burnings or burning an effigy on the front lawn of someone's home, whether it's a cross or the nerd sign. The Alpha Betas are making it clear they're oppressing the nerds, and the light goes off in UN's head that sure, they're not all black, but they're being oppressed and face the same challenges that they did. Did you get the vibe that he did it just because of that, or did he see the value in the chapter before that?
No, I do think that he, when he puts their picture up, he kind of puts it up with pride. And I think a point of it is that he is seeing that. He's seeing that the oppression crosses, skin color. And when they stick up for them at the end, again, these aren't just some party boys. He's seeing that he's proud of what these nerds are enduring and what they and believes in them. So the nerds do get their revenge, though. True to the name of the movie, they take their revenge on both groups, on the Pies and the Alpha Betas, by staging a panty raid on the Pi Delta Pies and pouring liquid heat into the Alpha Betas' jock straps. UN Jefferson is impressed by their willingness to stand up for themselves, and that's when he officially names them a Tri-Lam chapter. Their probationary period is over. I, at this point, hate the nerds. I thought that they were going to go after just Alpha Beta. Instead, they invade a sorority, they sexually harass the women, they plant cameras. It's just hideous act after hideous act, way over the top compared to what happened to them. And it made me so upset that I couldn't even enjoy the boobs.
Yes. Yeah, the attorney in my office, the in-house counsel, said every single member of the Lambda House is a registered sex offender now. They not only, breaking and entering, they break into the house, they steal property. They then hide in the attic. It looks like about 10 cameras. Now, let's just get over the fact that the hole they cut in the ceiling is maybe 5 or 6 inches wide, and there's no way you could miss that. But it seems like in a sorority house in the movies, everyone is walking around naked, bathrobes opened.
I'm glad, Big D, that you mentioned the whole how nude they were all the time, because I used to be in a lot of chat groups. This is in the early days of the internet, where we had chat groups or websites like Icon Has Chat, and you would spend hours with people who had cams on in their houses just to catch like a little bit of skin. And you literally, what's happening to the nerds in the movie, I can relate to that. You would like not shave, you'd have like just food wrappers all around. You're just watching the screen. Now you could easily go to a porn site and see people naked, but it was something about the oddity of seeing a person in their daily life get naked. I can't explain it. It was something, it was must-see TV.
Yeah, Betty Child chooses to sleep legs spread, face down on the bed. Seems a bit uncomfortable, but not one of the nerds complains. We know Lamar doesn't, watch. He goes upstairs and goes to bed. But you're exposing a 12-year-old boy to this criminal offense. Worms is either set for life and really advancing, or he is going to be crippled by the experiences at the Lambda House.
So the panty raid's pretty disgusting, and in fact, there's a deluxe edition of Revenge of the Nerds available, and it's called the Panty Raid Edition, which I thought too much. But what they do to the Alpha Beta seems like not enough. I mean, they go after the women hard with the guys, liquid heat on the jock straps that is irritating for 2 minutes?
Yeah, if anything, they should have hidden cameras in the Alpha Beta house and filmed the athletes with some serious shrinkage and put out pictures of all of them with small junk. That would have been maybe more balanced. But to sexually invade the privacy of the pies seemed a bit too much.
I did like during that scene, though, during the panty raid scene, when the camera is in front of Lewis and it's kind of tracking down the hallway as they're running down the hallway. And he says something effective like, this is going to be a great year or something like that. You are kind of rooting for them at that point. At that point, you don't realize how far they've gone, though. It gets a little weird.
I can remember a time that I needed to get 50 pledges and 100 brothers to a booze cruise. And the bright idea I came was to stick them in the back of a U-Haul. So we rented a U-Haul and strapped sofas to the side and the back and, drove the 25 minutes there. It worked great going there, but I didn't plan ahead to now having this 150 people super drunk. So the ride back was a horror show. I opened the back when we got there. There was vomit everywhere. It was an absolutely horrific experience. But if I'd gotten pulled over, my ass is going to jail.
Did you at least clean it up?
Oh, of course. You want to get the deposit back. Yeah. But yeah, you do stupid shit now. You think of it and you go, how the hell did we survive? Who would do that? Just dumb. So I can't fault Gilbert, as reprehensible as what they did was. At the time, I don't know. I probably would have been with them.
So the nerds realize they can only stop Stan by the Tri-Lambs winning the upcoming Greek games during homecoming. If you win the Greek games, you become the heads of the Greek Council. Using their high intelligence, the nerds, working with the Omega Moos, doggedly stay in second place behind the Alpha Betas and Pi Delta Pies throughout the sporting events. During the costume and charity sale events, the nerds use nude photos of Betty taken during their earlier revenge pranks to outsell the Alpha Betas. During this, Lewis, who has fallen in love with Betty, steals Stan's costume and tricks her into having sex with him. Betty is surprised when Lewis reveals his identity, but later admits to Stan that she is in love with a Tri-Lamb.
Jesus Christ, where do we start with this?
I want to start with this is how you choose your student government. This makes no sense at all. The entire college system here seems like an absolute shit show.
There's a lot of things going on that are a shit show at Adams College, but I don't want to get quite to Lewis and Betty yet.
Yeah, Big D, let's go ahead and table the sexual assault and get into a more lighthearted topic, which is the Greek games and the actual events. The first event, my favorite event, was the tricycle race, in which they do 22 laps while drinking a beer around each lap. Again, I don't know how the college is allowing them to do this. And the nerds are cheating by using a drug that's going to counteract the effects of alcohol. That's the small part. The cool part is, as you mentioned, the kamikaze helmet with the Japanese bandana and the song. The song is, again, a classic part of Revenge of the Nerds that you don't get in the soundtrack, and it's called Daisy Bell. Now, at first glance, you're like, oh, it's just a cute little Japanese song. But, of course, we have to do our research, and I found out some interesting stuff about Daisy Bell. Daisy Bell is a Japanese cover of another song that's in English, and if you recognize it, in 2001 Space Odyssey, HAL 9000 sings it. So as he's being dismantled and having his plugs pulled, he flashes back to give you some background here, HAL 9000 is the robot, or the robot sentience of the ship in 2001. Hal is being taken apart, and he flashes back to his earliest tasks that he was doing. One of those was singing this song, Daisy Bell. But it gets even weirder because Stanley Kubrick chose that because in 1961, the IBM 7094, which was among the earliest and largest mainframe machines developed by IBM, was the first computer ever to sing. And the song that it sang was Daisy Bell. So again, this computer narrative runs throughout there. But this for me, after doing the research, went from a really like amazing scene that made me super happy to kind of something sad.
Well, do you consider, they use trichloromethylene to counteract the effects of the alcohol, but do you consider it cheating?
It's a performance enhancing drug, absolutely. But it wasn't laid out in the rules, granted.
Okay.
But it's cheating.
There's no way they're winning any of these events without cheating. You have Ogre. Our next event here is the Trojan horse, where you have to actually sit on a barrel and you're being rocked. Ogre is holding probably a 40-pound trophy filled with maybe a case of beer. That's an additional 60, 70 pounds. Wouldn't you consider that cheating?
Absolutely. But I mean, hey, two wrongs don't make a right.
Hey, what we're saying here is gloves are off. You can do almost anything. For God's sake, they have co-ed arm wrestling.
That's true. I did think that one was a little odd.
Cheating is part of this entire Greek games. In the javelin, first of all, you don't want drunk college kids throwing javelins, but they custom make that javelin for Lamar that works specifically designed to Lamar's limp-wristed throwing style. It's a bigger cheat than drugs.
Oh, I disagree. I mean, if you look in the Olympics right now, like people can use different equipment as long as it's standard equipment. There probably wasn't any rule against that. The one thing that they won fair and square, though, was the belch contest. Booger just kicks ass in that. This triggered a religion in schoolyards when I was a kid. So I wasn't super good at sports, but I wasn't super good at burping either. But I was a respectable belcher. And it was fun for me because we didn't burp at home. That was considered very rude. So I remember as kids, we would, specifically get the thing that would make us burp the hardest at lunch, just so that we could go out in the during recess and burp our loudest. Did you guys do that?
My sister could burp the alphabet. So she's the burper in the family. But that original burp, that the audio you hear there, is recorded from a camel.
As a Persian, I should know that.
You should know that.
That's racist.
Have you heard camels burp before?
No, I grew up in Arizona, man. Come on.
You never visit the homeland?
Not anymore.
It's the no-fly list. I gotcha.
Absolutely not. So anyway, I've never been involved in any Greek activities. As I said before, I stayed as far away from that as I could. Like, how accurate is this depiction of like Greek week or any sort of a Greek carnival?
Well, yes, Greek week was you looked forward to it all year. No colleges, at least mine, didn't involve officially alcohol as part of the events. But it was a wide range. Yeah, there was a talent show. I can remember flag football was part of it. That was a big one for the fraternities. Water volleyball. I'm trying to think of other big ones. There was some like trivia contests, things like that. There's a whole bunch of events, but I had one specialty, which was the pugil sticks. Much like what was it? What was a television show?
American Gladiators.
Oh, I would kick ass. Now, granted, I'm a bigger dude. I'm 6'5". In college, I was probably 220. Hitting the gym. I was an absolute beast with the pugil sticks. I don't think I lost in 3 years.
Now, is that still a part of infantry combat training?
Oh yeah. That helped me definitely when I joined the military. Yes, it is part. And they use it in the military to break those that are, causing an issue. So I remember that I had come in after college. I already had my degree. There was animosity with the drill sergeants because I'd gotten a good signing bonus. I started out as an E4 only because I'd finished college. They used me as a learning instrument in basic for all the kids that were trouble. So whenever there was somebody causing an issue, they would always start the pugil stick training with me and that individual. And after that, they usually got in line.
So welcome back to Shat the Movies, where we're talking about Revenge of the Nerds. With the alpha, betas, and the nerds in close running, the final event is a musical competition. The nerds readily outdo the alpha, betas with a techno-computer-driven musical production and win the competition. Lewis quickly nominates Gilbert to become the new president of the Greek Council. Enraged, Coach Harris demands that the alpha betas take revenge, and Stan, having just learned that Betty has fallen for Lewis, orders the alpha betas to trash the nerds' fraternity house.
Hold on, we got to go back. When I first watched this movie, I don't know if it was just, because when you're younger, you don't grasp truly what's right and wrong. Sometimes, did you, upon first viewing, see what was really going on with Lewis and Betty?
No, I mean, I understood that they went to the fun house, they had sex. I didn't think it was that big a deal when I was a kid. When I was a kid, though, I had again, you're looking at, like, sex is like a he, like, ookie, like, you don't really have a serious understanding of what it is, and the power dynamic and sexual assault and all that stuff is not part of your vocabulary. To me, it was like, oh, wouldn't it be neat to, like, wear a mask and then some chick would think that you were a hot dude and then she would want to have sex with you. As an adult, it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, if I can just inform everyone watching it now, yes, that is rape. The actual legal term is rape by deception. In order for a male or female to make sex, consensual, you have to give full awareness and you have to give consent to the act. By Lewis hiding his identity, there is no way for Betty to give full consent. When she has sex with him, she feels like, she's having sex with her boyfriend, but it turns out to be Lewis, which is reprehensible enough. So yes, sad thing is, in many states, rape by deception is not treated the same as forcible rape. But yes, this is rape. What makes it even worse is Lewis has just violated Betty. He's hidden his identity. He's had sex with her. And they make it even worse by having Betty say it's okay because he was good at it.
Right. That part bothered me the most was that she, later she tells Stan, I'm in love with the nerd. And I I honestly wanted them to just to add into the script who sexually assaulted me, because essentially that's what happened. And yeah, again, what is that message that's sent to the people watching it was like, oh, it's okay to rape somebody as long as you're really good at sex. Like, that's fucking ridiculous and disgusting.
Yeah, even though she's saying no or she doesn't know who you are, in the end she might like it. This is a fucked up concept, and Betty just seems okay with it because I guess he does it better than the alpha betas do. But yes, there's no way this is okay. For me, it took a dark turn, and I never looked at Lewis the same way.
Yeah, Lewis is kind of gross throughout the movie. There's no other way to really cut it. He's not a great dude. The only thing he does that's even, I think, remotely okay is that he at least has the humility to nominate Gilbert to become the president of the Greek Council and not himself. I think recognizing that Gilbert is a decent human being who, he's romantic toward Judy. He seems like a stand-up guy. I like Gilbert. Lewis, I could do without. Other things I could do without were the other skits in this in the final competition of the carnival. Essentially, the nerds didn't have to do much because those other skits flat out suck.
Yeah, one of them I believe is simulating fellatio in a rowboat. I don't know what talent that's showing. You have some really bad comedians. The alpha betas really didn't put much of an effort in. I think that the nerds could have done 20% of what they did and walked away with it.
And honestly, it's the Devo homage was pretty cool. The Elvis homage was cool. I don't know why they had a Japanese man in a Native American costume banging a gong, but whatever, that's cool too. But it really came down to Lamar. Lamar won it for him.
I don't know about that. You also had Wormser doing the moonwalk with Lamar and the Michael Jackson red leather, arm shirtless jackets. You have Poindexter doing the electric violin with the mohawk. This is a visual cornucopia of beautiful sights and lights. I wished I was tripping balls, but it was a good show. I felt you loved Prince. Prince would have been proud of this show.
There was not nearly enough sexy in this for Prince.
Yeah, it was sexier than the other ones. All you need is a little nasty girl.
You think it? Yeah, true. You think it was sexier than a blowjob in a rowboat? All right. So the nerds, they win. And they return home to find their house destroyed. Gilbert barges into the pep rally for the football team and tries to demand that he be given the chance to speak. Stan, Coach Harris, and the other Alpha Beta stop him, but then the Dean, UN Jefferson, and a group of National Tri-Lam members arrive in force to ensure that Gilbert is allowed to speak. Gilbert speaks out on the discrimination the nerds have endured, causing Lewis to join him and finally admit his nerd status. Judy and Betty then join their respective boyfriends on stage, and Gilbert asks all alumni who have ever been picked on or made to feel inferior to join them. Most of the audience does so. The dean then orders Coach Harris and the Alpha Betas to repair the nerds' house while allowing the nerds to stay in the Alpha Betas' house until the repairs are completed. When Burke and Ogre protest, asking where they will live, the dean retorts, "Your jocks, go live in the gym," and the nerds and the alumni celebrate their victory.
Yeah, and this gets us to the question earlier about why the coach role was kind of underutilized. It turns real dark when the coach is an adult man encouraging a group of other large athletes who are presumably drunk to, rally up behind the idea of behind God, behind their maker. And he brings up the issue of when your father you were held in your daddy's arms, he wanted you to be a man. The coach is giving a parallel to you are not a man unless you physically oppress another group, unless you dominate them, unless you become violent. I think that is a really shitty message, and I'm glad they toned it down.
I'm glad that they also made the decision to make the kind of the heroes, the rescuers in this movie, the Tri-Lambs, the national guys. So they show up, and I think they show a pecking order there where these football players think they're hot shit at Adams, but there's one group that they are absolutely terrified of.
Yeah, the Lambdas come in, and I don't honestly believe that they're intimidating because they happen to be African American. These dudes look like, first of all, some are late 30s. We debated whether or not they were alumni, whether they were active. I swear I thought Carl Weathers was in there. The mustache was looking. These look like a bad bunch of dudes.
Yeah, it reminded me of, I do love that in a lot of these movies, like Animal House, Revenge of the Nerds, stuff like that, there was a certain respect given to, to characters who, of color, essentially. And it wasn't just, again, like you said, it wasn't a like, oh, they're thugs and that's why. It was just more the effect of like, there is a real hard world out there and you aren't ready for it. And these dudes are badass and they're gonna fuck you up. So that was really cool. UN Jefferson looked like a total G when he came in there. So as cheeseball as this movie was, and this ending was, this happily ever after sort of ending, it did bring to question, a couple bigger ideas for me. And one of them was, they say that the title of the movie, Revenge of the Nerds, and the fact that all these people do feel picked on and put out and judged and all that stuff. And I think that since this era where this was, these were oddballs and outsiders in 84. I think in 2017, we kind of see that the nerds have really had their revenge. Like they rule everything now.
Yeah, if you did a follow-up to this, 10, 15 years later, we talked about that with the Breakfast Club. That almost the entire Lambda House are very successful, well-adjusted adults, whereas many of the Alpha Betas probably have substance abuse problems, broken marriages. The Lambdas are truly, and the nerds have become main culture.
Yeah, and proof of that is that the intense amount of pornography on the internet shows that marriage of technical knowledge and sex is, right there. It is interesting to me, too, that it has become vogue to be nerdy now in the sense that you see people in their 20s, they'll throw on some glasses, the thick frame glasses, and, oh, I'm a nerd. And really, today's nerds don't look like that at all. Today's nerds have a completely, different aesthetic, which is no distinct aesthetic at all.
I remember growing up that the nerds a lot of times were ostracized. I was one of them, whether we were the ones early in computer lab or we were in the chess club. And it's nice to see that we, today they're kind of out in the open and they can be proud to be smart. You don't have to be embarrassed.
So, Big D, you promised us at the close of this podcast a litany of the crimes that were committed in this movie. If you could treat the audience to a legal breakdown of everything that went wrong in Revenge of the Nerds.
Okay, so the Alpha Betas, we have animal cruelty with the pigs in the party house, then followed by indecent exposure by mooning everyone in the house and the neighborhood. Then the Lambdas have trespassing within the Pi sorority house. Lewis then violates Betty's private space and could be considered assault as he brushes against her as he runs out of her shower. Then we have theft, depending on the value of the panties stolen from the sorority house. The jocks then with the liquid heat poured on there could be up for some kind of compensation if it was a civil suit, but they definitely did cause pain and discomfort. It could be a minor assault, depending on if someone got a burn or a rash. We then have the Alpha Betas committing arson by burning the nerd sign, rape by deception of Betty, selling of the topless photos of Betty could also be an invasion of privacy, plus benefiting off of sexually explicit content. It's not revenge pornography today because they weren't together. The coach then incites violence, so I believe he could be brought up on charges. And then an overall destruction of private property when the Alpha Betas destroy the Lambda's house. And we have some thrown in mix. Ogre's probably brought up on attempted murder charges for the opening scene, but that's a basic semester at Adams College.
That's incredible, Big D. Bravo. I guess now we get to the point of the podcast where we will rate this movie. We do it on a scale of 0 to 5, 0 wipes being a perfect movie you didn't even need to wipe your ass after watching. It was completely clean as a whistle, and you probably could whistle. Number 5 would be 5 wipes. That is an absolute disaster. You've been drinking beer out of the trophy.
No, a 5 is beef stew served in a gymnasium with a basketball in it.
So that's your scale of 0 to 5. Big D, since you are giving us the beef stew scale, I think you should go first. How would you rate this movie?
God, I got to be honest, and I feel guilty for saying it. I texted you because I knew you weren't a big fan of it, but after the podcast, you seem like you're a bit of a fan. I openly laughed. It was an hour and a half that flew by. maybe I enjoyed it because of Fraternity, but I really, really liked it. I really liked it. And I feel guilty for saying it, but I got to give it a 1.5. I liked it.
That's insane.
I really liked it. I feel guilty for saying it.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of The Last Starfighter because the effects were so bad and the story was so cheesy. Last Starfighter was better than this. This is a 4 for me. And that 4 is only because the tricycle race was so damn adorable. And also Booger. So I give it a 4. That brings us to a 5.5. So we can go ahead and call this like a 2.5 wipes average for Revenge of the Nerds. Certainly not the masterpiece that we watched last week in Terminator 2. Next week, we will be watching, depending on how the votes turn out, Big D, what's in the lead?
Yeah, so next week is a big one. It's the battle that's been brewing here for probably 3 or 4 weeks. We have over 525 votes at this current minute for fantasy films. And it is almost a dead heat between Highlander and Conan the Barbarian. They're both tied at 236 votes apiece. So this is going to come down to next Monday at noon Eastern to see who wins.
Guys, you've got to vote. We're getting heavy hitters involved in this. Great Northern Radio has gone on Twitter, our friends over there, and saying that you've got to go with the Highlander. They're out of Scotland, so I mean, it's a must. I need to see the Highlander just to hear Roger Roper's reaction to that movie. He's never seen it before. I think it would be a real treat. Again, I know we're not supposed to lobby on this show, but come on, guys, Highlander. I can't watch another Schwarzenegger movie.
I don't know. I almost feel like if these two finish so close together, I almost feel like we would have to sneak the other one in at some point, because to have one of these lose and have more votes than some other categories combined.
Listen, we've done a lot of Schwarzenegger. You know he's going to get in the future. Also, we're talking Sean Connery. Can you imagine how much joy we're going to have covering a movie with Sean Connery?
I agree. But again, we don't want to sway the vote. But make sure you go there, and you can do it on the homepage of shatthemovies.com, or just go to shatthemovies.com/vote. The following week, we have crime films, another big one with more than 500 votes. It's Pulp Fiction, Goodfellas, Scarface, The Untouchables. The following week is 1995 Oscar contenders, and this was suggested by one of our listeners on Twitter. So you can go there and see all them. I believe right now Shawshank Redemption's winning. And then we have 2 back-to-back weeks of best of collections, which were recommended on Facebook. One is the best of Harrison Ford, and the next one is the best of Nicolas Cage. Oh, we got one more. Sorry, I did this one late. Best of Charlie Sheen. So go there. We got some great 80s and 90s movies. We do them far enough in advance now so that people have an idea of what's coming down the following week so they can watch it. And also, that way we know we're doing the movie that everybody really wants to see.
I just realized that it's actually 4 plus 1.5 is 5.5. So this is a 2.5 wipe movie, actually 2.75 wipe movie, taking it closer to 3. So with that, we wrap up this episode of Shat the Movies with Revenge of the Nerds, getting a 2.75 average rating, 2.75 wipes, making it slightly above average.
Well, just to give you where that ranks now, that puts Revenge of the Nerds right between Pretty Woman and Big.
I think that's fair. Yeah, it's fair. So be sure to follow us on social media and share it with a friend. We're on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. On Facebook, search for Shat the Movies Podcast. Our website, again, is shatthemovies.com, and you can email us feedback, suggestions for movies at hosts@shatthemovies.com. We're also everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure and subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. It's one of the most important things you can do for us. We really appreciate it. Also, you can check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series. We're currently doing Taboo. We've also done Westworld, and we will be doing American Gods coming up. You can find all that information on our website, shatontv.com. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D and Roger Roper, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next Thursday for another edition of Shat the Movies. With that, I'm going to take off and get to some moping.
And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis.